Hello out there. Welcome to Wake Up to the Bible. I'm Daniel Kaplan. I'm here with my father, Dr. Kaplan, and together we are going through the books of the law, Genesis through Deuteronomy, over the course of this year, doing a little bit every day. Today we're going to be reading Genesis 23:17 through Genesis 24:9, and I'm going to be reading from the Robert Alter translation. And Ephron's field at Malchapela by Mamre, the field and the cave that was in it, and every tree in the field within its boundaries all around, passed over to Abraham as a possession, in the full view of the Hittites, all the assembled in the gate of his town. And then Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the Machpelah field by Mamre, which is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And the field and the cave that was in it passed over to Abraham as a burial holding from the Hittites. And Abraham was old, advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said to his servant, elder of his household, who ruled over all things that were his, Put your hand, pray, under my thigh, that I may make you swear by the Lord, God of the heavens and God of the earth, that you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanite in whose midst I dwell. But to my land and to my birthplace you shall go, and you shall take a wife for my son, for Isaac. And the servant said to him, Perhaps the woman will not want to come after me to this land. Shall I indeed bring your son back to the land you left? And Abraham said to him, Watch yourself, lest you bring my son back there. The Lord God of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birthplace, and who spoke to me and who swore to me, saying, To your seed will I give this land, he shall send his messenger before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. And if the woman should not want to go after you, you shall be clear of this vow of mine, only my son you must not bring back there. And the servant put his hand under Abraham's thigh, and he swore to him concerning this thing. We have the setup for what is going to come tomorrow, which is the discovery of Rebecca. But there's this whole setup. But the beginning of it is interesting because the last chapter started with Sarah's death, and it was how old she was, but it was talking about her life. And this one starts out with, Abraham was old and advanced and all of that. And so I think it's just trying to really give you that weight of where Abraham is in his life right now. um, what sort of things come to mind as you get to these instructions to the servant?
Well, I want to make a few comments. It's very profound, to where he put his hand. It's pointed out in the Jewish tradition that it's near the sign of circumcision where he puts his hand, and so it's obviously a sense of, as Daniel says, legacy, posterity, and so on. And it's a very solemn kind of uh, promise that he makes. Now, some people would think this is Eliezer, but I'm wondering if Eliezer couldn't necessarily live that long. I mean, Abraham lived a long time, so this servant is not named. But I did want to make one comment about Eliezer, going all the way back to Genesis 15. You know, when God says to Abraham he's going to have a progeny. Abraham is frustrated, and he says in verse 2 of Genesis 15, He that shall be possessor of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. And it's a kind of interesting wordplay in the Hebrew. He says, Uven Meshek Beiti Hu Damesek Eliezer. So there's a play on words there. And it's like saying, my boss is a Bostonian. Or like I could say, my missus is a Mississippian. So it's a kind of interesting wordplay in the Hebrew. But I wanted to say something important about Genesis 24. Some people take this to be a kind of uh, nationalist or racist concept. I want somebody from my household, not Canaanites. The issue is theological. He doesn't want a pagan wife for Isaac. If you go through the account, as Daniel will be reading it later, you'll see that the family of Abraham, even in Syria, the family of Abraham did have a relationship with Yahweh, with the God of Abraham, even though they perhaps they were what we call, I think, henotheism, that they had other gods, but that they looked at Yahweh as the chief God. But in any case, they did have a relationship with the God of Abraham, and that was critical to Abraham, that the wife have some awareness of the God that he worshipped. So it's really a spiritual matter here.
Getting back to what my dad was saying about the under the thigh, yeah, it's very it sounds very strange to a modern audience, but apparently it was more of a standard custom to do in terms of a solemn oath. And some people who study language say that that could be the origin of the word testify, coming from testicles. Possible. I know other people debate that, but it's possible, and it comes back to, on your honor and, your legacy and what would what matters to you, right? The your basically your reputation. There's so many things tied into that, but obviously nowadays I think people are okay with the fact that most people would rather sign a contract versus doing something quite that intimate physically. But it is, for the sake of just how serious they're taking this matter, right? That they're taking it on this sort of level. One thing that people like to bring up, certain scholars will like to bring up, is this talk about camels, because they'll say, well, this is incredibly anachronistic, that camels shouldn't be in these accounts. And there's a couple different ways you can look at it. You could look at it as perhaps we just don't know what was going on then. It could be that even if they weren't typically used, well, we do know Abraham was extremely wealthy, who tends to be the early adopter of technology, rich people. So it could be that perhaps Abraham was ahead of the game on this. And maybe perhaps that's even what it's kind of getting across for people that would know that. Um, or the other possibility is maybe these are not, in fact, camels at all, and it was later adjusted so that people could relate to a beast of burden taking people across the desert. All possibilities. None of them really bother me in terms of believing that there is a historical account here about beasts of burden in the desert, and probably I would say I would lean on the fact that it was probably actually camels, but that we maybe just do not have either the right knowledge about how they were used, or maybe Abraham was an unusual exception. But anyway, that is something that people do like to bring up.
I think we stop, in the middle of the account. So if Daniel keeps reading, we'll be able to get into the details, as he said, the discovery of Rebecca.
So yes, this does leave us in a bit of a cliffhanger. So, well, you're gonna have to check us out tomorrow to hear what indeed happened. This man was sent out on a mission, and it's like Mission Impossible. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to go to this weird place and try to find a wife for my son. And it's really serious. I mean, think of the stakes, right? It's like you're doing all this stuff. I really kind of feel for the servant here, and I think that's something that the narrative is trying to do too, is give us that tension. So I'm gonna play into that tension, and I'm gonna say, check us out tomorrow. Oh wait, my dad has something.
This is important. Isaac is unique of the patriarchs. He never left the promised land. Abraham went to Egypt, came back. Jacob was in exile for 40 years in Syria, whereas Isaac remains in the Holy Land the whole time. And even here, Abraham is insistent, bring the woman here. I don't want Isaac going there. So it's just, that's an interesting aspect of Isaac's life.
Yep. He's also the only one that's monogamous as well. So anyway, yes, we're leaving you in a little bit of suspense as the portion did. So if you haven't liked, subscribe, hit the bell, and then you'll find out when the next episode premieres. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow.